Welcome everyone to this short video. My name is Leslie Swartz. I'm a professor of psychology at Stellenbosch University in South Africa, and I'm also the editor-in-chief of the South African Journal of Science. And I have the honor and privilege today to be speaking to Dr. Nkosinathi Madondo, who works with me and my colleagues on the South African Journal of Science, and who will also be a speaker at the SciELO meeting in September 2023. So Nati, good to see you again. I don't get to see you and talk to you face to face often enough.
Yes.
Would you mind, just for the people who are going to be going onto the website and so on, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your academic career to date, who you are. Over to you.
Thank you. My name is Nkosinathi Madondo, affectionately known as Nati Madondo. I'm from a small township in the province of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa called Mpumalanga Township. I grew up from that township during when the regime of apartheid was rife at the time, but fortunately one managed to go to school, under the circumstances, and here we are today. And I've matriculated in one of the deep rural areas in South Africa, Bergville, and then from there I went to University of Durban-Westville for my undergraduate bachelor's degree, where I majored in English and economics. And from there I did my honors in English, Bachelor of Arts English honors. And then I did master's in English language and media studies. And my PhD is in higher education studies, obtained from Rhodes University in South Africa. So it has been a roller coaster ride, but hopefully, gratefully, here we are today. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you. It does sound like quite a ride across the history of our country, actually.
Yes.
Nati, when you're talking at SciELO, you're going to be talking about the South African Journal of Psychology. So before we get to what specifically you're going to be talking about, won't you tell us about your role at the journal and the journal itself, and how you've found working on the journal?
Okay. My role.
South African Journal of Science. Did I say psychology? South African Journal of Science. Sorry.
Yeah, I think our roles always come in between. Yeah. Well, my role in the South African Journal of Science is currently an associate mentee, where I work with an experienced, associate editor, where we look at, journal articles that have been submitted by scholars, looking at the rigor, in terms of, the writing and the accessibility, of the journal, the manuscript itself, So my experience so far has been quite amazing. I've learned so much from the journal and from my mentor, in terms of discerning quality journal, that is worthy of publication, in terms of methodological coherence, theoretical framing, the language itself, that is used to account for data, and things like that. So I can confidently say that I am gradually settling, into the discourse, of editing, of looking at journals, at looking at the quality, of the journal itself.
Wow, yeah. That's great to hear. And one of the things that you mentioned, and I know this is going to, be a feature of what you're going to be talking about at the academic meeting, has to do with the accessibility of writing, and so on. And I know that you're going to be talking specifically about what the journal's been doing in terms of its language policy and so on. So could you tell us a little bit about that and why you think it's important in general for scientific journals, and why it's a particularly important issue in South Africa?
Yes. Well, if I can maybe start from the latter part of your question.
Yes.
South Africa, comes from a situation where the language itself has been and is still, a contested terrain.
Yes.
In the sense that the language of learning and teaching, which is English, has gained dominance, in various spheres, economically, politically, socially, and otherwise. And so its dominance has been shaped by the regime, of the time. And it continues, to be dominant in that sense. And in the process, many, who are residing in South Africa, they don't use English, at home as a first language and so on. So I think it is imperative to take cognizance, of this issue, that as much as we don't say we need to replace English, but there should be other ways whereby there is recognition of other stakeholders who might not necessarily be conversant, as far as English is concerned. We don't want to exclude, those. Yes. And as far as publication is concerned, as far as the South African Journal is concerned, I think the issue of accessibility, through language, this is important and this is necessary, for I think it is a great move, by the journal, because indeed this is an interdisciplinary journal, and scientists writing, in the journal should ensure that what they write about, the wider readership, of the journal can access that. The point is not to negate the scientificity, of the writing. We don't want to do that, but the unnecessary jargon of scientific writing, while it might be necessary in some instances, but as authors, the journal makes it clear we need to try as much as possible to make sure that what we write about and what we comment on is accessible to a wider readership, because indeed this is an interdisciplinary, journal.
I mean, there are some people who would say, and in fact have said to me in my position as editor-in-chief on the journal, that accessible writing, you have mentioned this, but your view on it, but I'd just like to sort of push you a bit. Some people say, oh, well, if you write accessibly, you might as well be writing for school children. It's not academic, it's not science. What's your response to that?
Okay, then we need to ask the question, what is science?
Yes.
I mean, for me, scientific writing, should be based on rigorous application of, facts. For example, you need to ensure that the writing is rigorously researched, is peer reviewed, is, the scientific community, you have really been able to satisfy the procedures, as it were, for writing scientifically. You have followed procedures, you have used scientific methods, you have used literature, and so on. It doesn't mean that literature and rigorous way of doing things means writing in difficult language. I don't think it means that. It means you have satisfied the scientificity of writing in terms of rigor, in terms of methodological coherence, in terms of theoretical framing, and that, for me, if as a reader, I don't struggle to read your work, it means there is so much effort that you have put in as a writer, in that work.
Yeah. In fact, so you're saying that clear writing is an achievement, not a cop out. I mean, that there's work involved in writing accessibly.
Yes, there's work. There's so much work involved.
Yeah. You're obviously going to talk more about this when you are at the SciELO meeting, but I think part of the function of this small clip that we're putting on the website is so that people get to know you a little bit better. So who Dr. Madondo is, who Nkosinathi is, and if you don't mind, could you just, on this issue of exclusion on the basis of language, and I'm very well aware that your first language is Zulu speaker, working probably all the time in English at your university position and your position on the journal. How have these things affected you, do you think, from a personal point of view, if you don't mind talking about that? Yeah.
No, thank you. Well, I would maybe refer back to my school years, if that is okay.
Yes.
So what happened in my school years, we were taught, of course, the language of learning and teaching was English. And when we were, when our teachers taught us in class, and at most, they used our vernacular languages, isiZulu, for example. But when we were examined in English.
Wow.
And as a result, we lacked the vocabulary, to engage and to respond to questions in ways that were deemed necessary. So that is one part of it. Another aspect is that, you see, the language is more also about the identity, who you are and how you see yourself. And when people, are having a conversation, are together, and they are very much fluent in English, and they are first speakers of English, because at school and university you find those, and so sometimes you find you found yourself having an idea in mind and wanting to express the idea, but also having the fear of saying the idea incorrectly, and then you end up not saying anything, and when the next person who is fluent in English and they say more or less the same idea, and then you end up having these internal conversations within yourself and saying, this is what I was thinking as well, but of course you couldn't say it, freely and openly, because you are always conscious of how the next person would react. Remember, because English is the language of power and all of that is associated with it, there was also this idea of superiority and inferiority complex, whereby you always found yourself in a position of doubt. You always doubted yourself, whether I will be saying it right, what if I say he instead of she, those small things, but which counted a lot in terms of how you navigated, the space. But growing up and realizing that, in fact, this is not my I did not create the condition. I did not create the situation, and so I shouldn't really find myself suffering like this. So you have to push boundaries, but it takes a certain level of realization, to reach at that level. Most of us are really struggling, as far as that is concerned. So to be able to push those boundaries, it takes you to be at another level, to realize many things, to grow thick skin, so to speak. If you know what.
Yeah. I mean, this is obviously a long conversation, and I'm rather sad I'm not going to be with you at the meeting, but I'm going to try and follow it online. But I mean, what I really appreciate in the little talk that we've had, and people will see when you talk at this SciELO meeting, is how you've sort of integrated your personal story with what you're trying to do as a person working for an important journal in South Africa, and I think that's important not just for you and for us, but also for the next generation. If we want to make, seriously, the theme of the meeting has to do with diversity, inclusion, those sorts of things, and that's why I think your contribution is so important. And I'd like to thank you for talking so openly with me today. So thank you very much, and safe travels, and we'll welcome you back in South Africa very soon. So
thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye for now.